I don't think Marvel remembers why the Avengers or these comic book stories or even Doctor Doom matters anymore. These Avengers Doomsday trailers quietly reveal just that. Welcome back to Magus in the Media. Today, I'm reacting to and reviewing all of the Avengers Doomsday trailers. They're not that long, it's only a little over a minute for each one. And as many as there have been released so far at least. The film lands December 18th, 2026. So we're still waiting to see what is revealed through these trailers. What we have right now is space. Space to pay attention, to notice tone, to ask what kind of story Marvel thinks it's telling us again. And that pause matters, since the run that it culminated in the Avengers Endgame, some of the greatest Marvel storytelling movies of all time, something essential is thinned out. The mythology has become scattered across too many releases, too many tones, too many platforms. Disney Plus turned what used to feel like a community, what used to feel like my childhood dreams have become manifest. We used to dream of what would it look like for our comic books to become on the big screen, for some of the greatest actors to tell us the stories that we dreamt we once would see. And we got that through the first few movies up until just that, Infinity Wars and Endgames. And after, it seems there's been some scattering of sorts, some missing of the meaning, something like, why are these stories even being told when there are so many back-end, so many trades, so many writers, so much brilliance that can be, that these stories can come from. And yet, we're left wanting. Characters stopped carrying weight forward. Stories started feeling provisional, like they could be undone or ignored at any moment. A lot of it has felt crafted, felt administered, almost like the producers or the studios have maybe gotten in the way of what great storytelling truly is.
Oh, that's weird.
And that's the backdrop that Doom enters into. And that's why it matters so much. That's why Doom matters so much. He is one of the greatest villains in the Marvel universe of all time. Some of the greatest stories like Hickman coming up and showing us what happens when Doom comes up and goes against Thanos, or against the Fantastic Four, or against the X-Men. These stories matter. Please, Disney, please, Marvel, can you give us great Marvel movies again?
All right, we're optimistic, yes. I like your plan, except it sucks, so let me do the plan, and that way it might be really good.
Dr. Doom. He comes from the earliest Fantastic Four comics, first appearing in 1962, I believe, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Victor Von Doom is born in Latveria to a Romani mother who practiced sorcery and a father who died opposing a tyrant. Interesting. His life begins with magic and ends up obsessed with mastery. He becomes one of the greatest scientific minds on Earth while also training in the occult arts. Do you see where we're going with this? Doom never treats science and magic as competing explanations. He treats them as parallel languages for imposing order on reality. That fusion is the key to mythology. Doom is a sorcerer king, a ruler who believes knowledge creates obligation. If you see this pattern, if you understand how things work, then it becomes your responsibility to shape the world accordingly. Latveria under Doom is often depicted as a stable, orderly, and protected area. Crime, very low. Chaos, contained. Obviously, there's a tyrant there. The cost is freedom, dissent, uncertainty. Doom doesn't see that cost as tragic at all, actually. He sees it as necessary. Mythically, he sits in the same lineage as figures like Solomon, Faust, and the philosopher kings. He's the archetype of certainty hardened into straight-up law. His armor seals an identity, a refusal to ever be exposed again, as well as what are these scars that are internal that he cannot show others, this weakness that cannot be exposed. His rituals, his machines, the Doom bots, they all express the same impulse: to eliminate unpredictability, to ensure that nothing happens without his consent. That myth hits very close to home right now, as we can see across the lands. We live in a moment defined by exhaustion, with fragmentation. People are tired of incoherent systems, endless choice, and stories that never truly resolve. They just keep on coming up. There's a growing desire for order, for clarity, and authority that promises to make things make sense again. Doom embodies that temptation. He represents the comfort of certainty and the danger that comes with surrendering complexity to someone who claims that they just may know better. This is where Marvel has struggled recently. These stories used to trust consequence. Power came with cost. Magic and technology felt dangerous because they changed the people who used them. Lately, much of that has been flattened into reference, pacing, brand continuity. Doom cannot survive that treatment. His entire meaning depends on the story being willing to sit with uncomfortable questions about control, responsibility, and the price of order. So, these trailers aren't just previews, they're tests. They tell us whether Marvel is ready to remember how to tell myths again, whether this will be another attempt to gesture at depth without committing to it. Are they just truly going to get us old characters, the same actors that once sparked that beauty, that growing, that gave us meaning, where we could see these archetypes, these characters from our youth all the way up into adulthood that would be expressed from the page onto the big screen? Now, here we go. I'm gonna watch each trailer one by one, leaving real space between them. Let's talk about it. Let's talk through what maybe they suggest. There might not be much. It might be hollow. They might give us something. And it's not just about plot, it's not about characters, but it's about whether this mythology still has the courage to say something true about power in the world that we're living in right now, about the occult magic, about technology, and about politics within a society that either lacks or has magical understanding. And again, if you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share to Magus in the Media. Let's move on and let's see what these trailers have to give us. First one up, Steve Rogers. Avengers Doomsday. Here we go. Oh, we get Steve Rogers with the windmill beginning as he rides down the road. Is he coming or is he going? And a home. Is Steve Rogers coming home? Triumph. Do you see? Triumph. Because Steve Rogers comes back. Do we triumph into a great movie, or are we going to triumph away into just another blathering, nonsensical, lack of substance in our movies? And the door, as Steve walks up the staircase into his home. Something he's been questioning for a very long time. And then we get to see the Captain America star and his armor. Is he packing it up or is he unpacking it? These are the questions we're asking. Obviously, he's unpacking it because he's coming back in this movie, because Marvel has nothing to give us except for bringing back older characters that we once loved. So there we are. And Steve has a child, which is something he deserves. I truly believe that. But at the same time, can you give us, Marvel, please, a movie that matters? Here we are, Steve looking at his child. Does Steve have something to fight for? Will this big bad guy, will Doom come in and make it so Steve has to stop being a father and protect the one he loves? Where did Steve Rogers go? Where is Captain America? And obviously the Falcon didn't make it, as in it wasn't good enough for what the people wanted. It could have been a great story, but let's see where we go from here. Steve Rogers will return in Avengers Doomsday. All right, so that's the Steve Rogers one. What are we getting out from this? Well, with Steve Rogers returning, we get a true understanding of where Marvel has come in this long few years since Avengers Endgame, since Steve left and, was able hopefully to live on the rest of his life and wasn't going to be needed in the Avengers universe. Well, that didn't come to be true because we just truly felt lost without this character in our timeline of what the Avengers are. You can't truly have the Avengers without a great Captain America, which is then really hard for movies to do just that, because we've become so accustomed to seeing Steve Rogers as that actor. And so in comic books, we have the ability to kill off characters and bring them back, and we still get to draw them the way Captain America looks. And that's not really the same thing we get in our modern everyday, actors maybe want to move on from these movies, which I totally understand. But as an audience, we like to think we know what a character looks like. And so how do you do that? Well, most of the time you're going to have to reintroduce new actors, give them, it'd be nice to see some of these new actors coming up that maybe look close to the character, and then we already don't know who they are because maybe they haven't been in other films. Maybe we could try that. But here we are. Steve Rogers is coming back because we've missed out on having good movies in the Marvel universe, and we need to feel that nostalgia. So let's move on to the next trailer. That trailer was okay. Steve Rogers has a kid, and he's gonna have to fight for that kid because he wants to fight for his world, right? That's what we're gonna get. But let's move on. Now what we're getting here is we're getting Thor into our Avengers Doomsday universe. And Thor has had some great movies come out. The very last one was trash. And so let's see if they can do better from whatever that trash movie was for the fourth Thor. Yeah, that's what I think. Let's go. We open with trees.
Father.
Thor screaming for
All
father.
my life, I have answered every call. To honor, duty, to war. But now fate has given me something I never sought.
So Thor in the very last movie, Thor Love and Thunder, which again, this isn't a hot take. That movie was trash, but he has a kid now. So we're seeing something, this kid mythos where the original Avengers who are getting older now have children, and they have something to fight for more than just humanity. They are now the parental figures that want to fight for their young ones, which we can all feel. But the problem is this is levels of nostalgia that the previous movies just didn't give us, of these characters having children in a way that felt like it mattered. We've never seen Steve Rogers with a kid, and now we get Thor with a kid, and the ending scene of him and his child like fighting against a bunch of people, it felt hollow. I thought it was a terrible movie, even though Christian Bale was the big bad guy, which in the Avengers arcs with Jonathan Hickman, that character was a badass, that bad guy was, and what we get in the movie is very lackluster. So let's continue.
A child.
See, the child.
A life untouched by the storm. Lends me the strength of the old fathers. So that I may fight once more, defeat one more enemy.
So Thor still doesn't have Mjolnir, the meaning he's unworthy, maybe, meaning he has the battle axe, which I don't remember its name, and he's speaking to it and trying to speak to the Allfather Odin. The idea is that through the comic books, Thor becomes the Allfather. Thor and Odin are one similar archetype moving through time, but he has something to fight for. Is he worthy or not?
And return home to her, not as a warrior, but as warmth. To teach her not battle, but stillness. The kind I never knew. Please, Father, heed my words.
Thor will return in Avengers Doomsday. So interesting. What do we have not seen? That's the question. What have we not seen? Well, interesting enough, we have not seen Doom yet. It may be Doomsday, but we have not seen the Great Doom. So now we've seen Thor. He's pleading to his father, and I'm kind of sick of this him pleading to the Allfather type of thing. I don't really get that in the comic book at all. I've read tons of Thor comic books throughout the years, and he's kind of seeming like a whimpering baby when that's not the Thor character that I know or love. And so it'd be nice if he wants to act like an actual father, like Odin's character does. We don't get Odin whimpering all the time like we see Thor. I've loved every Thor movie up until Thor Love and Thunder. And so far with these trailers, I haven't really seen much mythology. I've seen the archetype of the father and the daughter, the father and the son, the father and the child, which again, maybe in this world, we do need a better parental figures to help lead us into the next age, this next catastrophic event. But it'd be great to see a little more, I know they're maybe trying to keep mystery here, but it'd be great to have a little more mythology, a little more comic book reference to what Doom is truly about. And besides just Doom being Robert Downey Jr., we don't really get why. So maybe that's obviously going to come throughout the rest of the year until this movie comes up. But you can't just add great actors and old actors, you know, Robert Downey Jr. being Iron Man dying in Endgame, and now Iron Man is Doom for some reason. You know, I get the multiverse aspect of these things, and the multiverse has done really well. I highly recommend everyone to go out and read Jonathan Hickman's arcs of the Avengers. It is some of the most phenomenal writing of all time. Jonathan Hickman is a beast. And so if you're sick of the movies, go out and read those comic books. That's my call out to that. But Thor gave me a little more substance in this trailer than we got in the Steve Rogers trailer. But again, it's going to be hard for them to come back from Thor Love and Thunder since that was such a trash film. So let's move on to next one. All right, I will state this one's really got me excited only because this callback actually really works. We've been waiting for a very long time. The long time for Sony to give up their hands and finally give us great X-Men movies. I am a child of the 90s, as in the early 90s, and when the first X-Men films came out from Bryan Singer, I will state I was so excited and I loved actually every single one of those, even though probably format-wise or canon-wise, it wasn't the best films, but that's where we initially get the Hugh Jackman Wolverine, and we get all these characters all the way up until the Phoenix does her thing. Every X-Men since then, besides Days of Future Past, I would say definitely missed the mark. So what they had to do is they had to bring back all of the old X-Men actors because that's the last time the X-Men was any good. And that's what they did in Days of Future Past as well. And so let's see if Marvel has the cojones, has the creative factor to be able to take this chance and rip open the seams, take some great continuity canon, take some great stories from some of the great Avenger X-Men stories of our past. Let's see this trailer. We've been waiting for X-Men to come back. Please, Marvel, give us great movies. Give us great stories.
Death comes for us all.
That's obviously Xavier's Institute for the X-Men, for the gifted, and it's destroyed because of what happened in the past.
The question...
And that's Xavier's school for gifted youngsters. And we get the old Professor X, obviously. Patrick Stewart played an amazing Professor X. Again, they're calling on nostalgia. They're calling on the past to make good things because if they, I believe, truly know how terrible these last films and shows were. Not all of them. I will state not all of them. I liked some of them, but that's not for here to talk about.
Listen, are you prepared to die? The question is, who will you be when you close your eyes?
Who would you be when you close your eyes? The king and the queen in the chess match. And you get Magneto and you get Professor X, Ian McCullen and Patrick Stewart, right? They are the goats of the X-Men. And that is badass. X-Men will return in the Avengers Doomsday. All right, I will state that ending with the Cyclops using his blasters, which is not something that melts things, but it's something, they're blasters. They punch something really hard. That's phenomenal. And the last time we saw him, that actually mattered, he ended up dying in the last X-Men movie of the original trilogy. Because his wife and lover, the Phoenix, Jean Grey, killed him. And so this is kind of a callback to that moment, but this time, he's actually wearing the Cyclops uniform of the X-Men with the colors of the blue and the yellow. So that's awesome. So maybe we're gonna get some actual X-Men outfits instead of the all black from the Bryan Singer X-Men, which I understand why they did that. They were trying to bring upon this was new back in the 90s and the early 2000s. That's great. That gives me a little bit of hope. But again, what do we not see? Doom. There is no Doom. Where's Doom? Give us a little bit. And I know they're hiding Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. But again, all of these little callbacks are hollow without mythology, without canon, without the stories that made them popular. Give us magic, give us superpowers, give us a little something more besides just running off of fumes of past movies. What do I know? Let's move on to the last trailer. Let's see how it goes. Now this one is only titled Avengers Doomsday. I'm pretty sure this is a mix of Fantastic Four with Wakanda, with Black Panther. Rest in peace, true Black Panther. The original Black Panther when it came out was phenomenal and monumental and amazing. Everything from the story to the soundtrack. And so I do say RIP to that Black Panther. And so let's see how this trailer does and gives us, this is the last thing we've seen in all the trailers that have come out. It's like little breadcrumbs. Are they just giving us little breadcrumbs? With breadcrumbs, the bread's gotta taste good. Otherwise, people aren't gonna wanna watch it. So I will state, Marvel, you may need to give us a little more than what you're giving us, because right now I feel a lack, and I feel like I don't actually care. Besides the X-Men movie part, which I would love to have just an X-Men movie, but I know this is how they're opening the door to the X-Men in this universe, so they get the whole multiverse, X-Men coming in. Will Doom then do what he did, and will he collapse all timelines? So you just have one timeline now? And then what? I don't really know, but let's go. Let's see what happens. In the desert. Oh, there we are. The current Black Panther.
I've lost everyone that
Current Black Panther is Black Panther's sister.
matters to me. The king has his duties.
This is Namor, king of the Atlanteans.
To prepare our people for the afterlife.
And this is two worlds, like the Black Panther tribe or the civilization and Namor civilization. They are constantly at war with each other, and so that is something that we did get in the latest Black Panther movie. And when you go back to the comic books, especially during all the incursions that happened with Jonathan Hickman's stuff, those two characters really had it out with each other, and so it's quite that's got a lot of substance to it. So we'll see if that comes even more in during Doom. And trying to defeat Doom.
King M'Baku of Wakanda.
Then,
Fantastic Four movie, we get the Thing, and Namor loves Susan Storm. We'll see how that works out with Reed Richard. And so we get a lot of crazy stuff like that in the comic books, but I will state Fantastic Four movie I watched not too long ago, and I actually really liked it. I did think that movie was really sound in and of itself.
Yancey Street, between Broome and Grand.
So we get the Wakandans, and the Fantastic Four will return in Avengers Doomsday. We got all the trailers. Did any of them land? Well, the X-Men obviously did. It piqued my interest, that boyhood interest of the X-Men. They were one of my first comic book loves. Who didn't want to be from the school of the gifted children and then all of a sudden realize you have superpowers and try to belong? And we've been waiting for the X-Men to come into the Marvel universe for a very long time, since Sony kind of messed up a lot of those with terrible casting, terrible storylines, terrible acting, besides Days of Future Past, which I liked. And then you get the Bryan Singer, that started off the whole X-Men in the universe, which I did. I was younger then. I liked all those. Here we are. Other than that, the Wakandan and Fantastic Four was okay. You know, all that mythology I do really like. However, again, no Doom in any of those. You get Steve Rogers coming back because the last how many years all the movies and shows were lacking. They had high budgets but didn't pull us in as an audience, as if you're a nerd out there and a comic book lover. Some of those really sparked our interest, but others were lackluster, trying to push a message, trying to push levels of propaganda that maybe didn't have that same spark of energy that archetypes and mythologies and magical systems and structures do. What Marvel seems to be leaning on here isn't confidence in actually new myth, in a level of all the great stories and artists that have told Marvel comics for like 50 years. There's lots to pull from, and maybe they're not confident that any of that stuff is going to land with just new moviegoers or new audiences, even though it is the comic book nerds and the people who love that world are the ones that are truly going to everything and watching all this stuff. And so it'd be nice if they could call us in, but it's the familiar faces that they're really banking on, characters that people already loved, a quiet appeal to trust that was built years ago. During a time when these stories still felt cohesive, every movie building upon the next to have this big bad guy at the end. During a time when these stories really mattered, and they can matter today because people want to have meaning in their life. And when they go into these theaters, it is set up as its own mystery initiation school for us to go through these big, huge topics that may be abstract, these great battles, and for us to go through and sort these out in our own psyche. There's a sense that the draw isn't actually Doom or the Doomsday itself. It's kind of like the draw is only Robert Downey Jr. when we first got it, and now the draw is all these past characters that we once had that were supposed to be gone, but they're back because multiverse. So there's that, and there's a sense that the draw is of the nostalgia is the only thing that we really want to bring us in, but they hope that returning figures might restore something that was once lost, which it may do. And I have some levels of hope because Doom is such a massive character, and I understand that impulse. Nostalgia works best because nostalgia is real. Those characters mattered. They carried weight once, but nostalgia can't carry a mythology. It cannot carry that mythology forward on its own. It'll be hollow without the mythology, the essence of storytelling within it. It can invite people back into the room, but it can't tell the story for you once you sit down. That's where Dr. Doom becomes the dividing line. He becomes the big bad guy that once Thanos used to be. Dr. Doom can be that. Dr. Doom rips Thanos' spine out of his body in Jonathan Hickman's stories. Doom isn't a memory. Doom is within us all. He's not comfortable. He represents this logical structure of law, certainty, and the temptation to solve fragmentation by force of will, force of technological scientific magic. And if Marvel is serious about him, then these familiar characters shouldn't exist to reassure us. They should be tested, pressured, made uncomfortable by what Doom represents and what he demands of the world around him. In the last movies, we should have felt Doom's presence. In the last shows, we should have felt Dr. Doom behind the scenes, kind of like you felt Thanos through the beginning of those first movies, where we first were introduced to the Avengers. But we haven't had that. They've been in flux. They haven't known what to do, who the bad guy's gonna be. Is it Kang? Is it Kang? Is it the Celestials? Who is it? They don't know. But now it's Doom. It's Dr. Doom. And Dr. Doom is Robert Downey Jr. You remember him? Robert Downey Jr. was Tony Stark. But now he's not, because multiverse. See the dilemma here? And if these characters are here to only remind us of better times, then this movie will feel hollow no matter how many people show up at the opening. And if they're here to be challenged by an idea larger than themselves, then there's still a chance that this mythology can move forward instead of circling itself over and over and over. So for now, I'm paying attention, but I'm not really bought in. Watching to see whether Marvel is willing to do more than open old doors, and whether Doom and Doomsday is meant to mean something beyond just familiarity. Can it be social commentary? And at the same time, can it be a mythology set up by the comic books, by the narratives, and by the stories that built this great bad guy, this great villain? Okay, thanks for listening. And if you've stayed with me through this, thank you so much. This is Magus in the Media, where we explore myth, magic, and meaning in the stories that we love, especially the stories that are deciding whether to risk something new or if they're just banking on something old. And I'll see you next time.